Hey, Pastor Josh here. We're reading Genesis chapter 37, verses 1 through 11, and we are beginning the story of Jacob. And this is considered the generations of Jacob. These are the descendants of Jacob, and these folks that come from Israel will be a part of the nation of Israel. There is no more dividing of nations where you've went from Cain and Abel, the division there, or perhaps we should say Seth and Cain, the division that happened there between Abraham and Isaac. Between Isaac and Ishmael, the division that happened there, and Jacob and Esau, and the division that happened there. From now on, everybody underneath the nation of Israel is going to stay within the nation of Israel. We know within Old Testament history that there is division that happens within the kingdom, but still they are understood as one covenant community, children of God, even if you will, even though just because they are in Israel and of Israel doesn't mean they are of Israel, as the Apostle Paul will say. What that means is just because you are a physical descendant of Israel does not mean that you are truly a child of God. Doesn't mean that you truly worship the Lord. Just because you grew up in a Christian family, just because you went to church as a child, just because you were even baptized as a child and gave some sort of profession of faith, that does not mean that you are truly saved. If that individual had stopped, I'm sure that person's not watching this video, but if you chose not to be a part of God's people, even though you were born in a Christian family, doesn't mean that you are a Christian. So Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph being 17 years old. Now, we'll have some mentioning about his mother, Rachel. His biological mother would have died when he's around 6 or 7 years old. And so Joseph is now 17 years old at this point. Benjamin, his younger brother, is going to be about 10 years old. So Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah in Zilpah. So the question is one of these becoming kind of his surrogate mother as Rachel passed away and died? His father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his sons because he was the son of his old age. He's the oldest of the two sons that he had by Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin, and we're told that Joseph is loved more than everybody else. That would be a sin. That's not a good thing for a father to love one child more than the other. And what is ironic, fascinating, is that Israel is committing the same sin that his father Isaac did. If you remember, Isaac loved Esau more than Jacob, and now Jacob is doing the same thing. He's loving one of his sons more than all the others, and you would think out of all the he wouldn't do that. You would think Jacob would have realized how hurtful that would be to have his father love his brother more than him, and here he is committing the same sin. It's good for mothers and fathers to equally love their children. We know they're all different, and we treat them differently based on their particular weaknesses and strengths, but at the same time, we love them equally and want to see them all prosper. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a robe of many colors. You all know that famous robe. Now when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. They hated him. They are responding to sin with more sin, and that's not good. We're supposed to respond to evil with good. We are never to respond in a sinful way to sin. Never, never, never. So even though it is terrible for them to not be loved, for Joseph to be favored and to be loved more, not just favored but loved more, that would be wrong for them to then hate their brother. And notice the commentary that's given here. They could not speak peacefully to him. We have to remember that sin runs so deep that it brings an inability to do good and to do right. We really need the grace of God and the strength of the God to do what is good and right. It is a grace and a gift of the Lord whenever we do what is right and good. It never comes from ourselves. I believe that in the deepest part of my heart, that we are sinful through and through, and sin is so debilitating to the human that we cannot do what is right, just like his brothers could not speak peacefully to Joseph. Now, Joseph had a dream, and this dream is going to talk about how Joseph is going to be better than his brothers. His brothers already hate him, and I think it's a terrible idea for him to tell his brothers this dream, but he does. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. This is an example for us not to follow. This seems to be rather foolish on Joseph's part. Why would you tell your brothers who hate you that you have this dream about how you're going to be their boss and their king? But he tells them anyway. And then because he tells them, they hate him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream that I had. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright." So he's like, we were in there bundling our wheat up, and I had my bundle of wheat, and you all had your bundle of wheat, and they were all laying on the ground, but then mine stood up. Stood upright, and behold, your sheaves gathered around it. So your all sheaves got up too, and they walked on over to my sheaf, and your sheaves, your little bundles of wheat. What did they do? They bowed down to my bundle of wheat. And his brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us? Are you kidding me? You're going to be our boss? Are you indeed to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Again, I do not think this was a good idea for him to do that. But this dream was indeed from the Lord, a promise from the Lord, because Joseph will indeed be in Egypt, and his brothers will literally come to him at the end of the book of Genesis, and they will bow before him. But they hated him for this dream. When he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Behold, I have dreamed another dream." So not only does he have one dream and he tells his brothers, he has another dream, and he tells it to them again. "Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him," 11 stars being his 11 brothers. But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?" And remember, this mother we're not saying is Rachel. We're saying it is probably one of the other ladies that have become his surrogate mother, probably raising both Benjamin and Joseph together. "So shall we both bow to the ground before you?" And his brothers were jealous of him. But his father kept the saying in mind. I think that's a good example for us to follow, is that Jacob wasn't especially thrilled with this dream himself. He was offended by it. I think it's obvious from the way that he responded to Joseph. But even though he was offended by it, he said, "Well, this might be from the Lord." And how many times do people say things to us or things happen to us and we're irritated about it, we don't like it, but we have to keep it in the back of our mind. Perhaps the Lord is using this situation. Perhaps the Lord is using these words to bring about his purposes and his plans. And we must always keep that in mind. And so the father kept it in mind. And I really think that is one of the keys to being joyful in difficult circumstances, and when you keep running into obstacles all the time, you need to keep in mind, in the back of your mind. Remember, Jacob was offended by it, but he kept the saying in the back of his mind there, is that these obstacles, the criticism, the discussions that you had, the circumstances, the way they played out, not exactly playing out the way that you wanted them to play out, you have to remember, okay, maybe, just maybe, the Lord might be providentially moving me, nudging me to the place I need to be. And when you think of it like that, you can then have a joyful attitude and know that the Lord is in charge and he's going to get done what he wants to get done. Isn't that so cool? Isn't that so neat? I pray that has been a blessing to you. I'll see you all in the next video, and I might be hanging out with you for a while because I can't find my mouse. There's my mouse. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.